I think it's overpriced because all you're doing is you're growing the weed in your garden, you're cooking it up with some oil and extracting it and putting it in a bottle, and you're telling everybody it's so special, so authentic, it will heal you. For me, it's like snake oil. You're charging them 1.2, 1.5, 1.7. So the higher it is, you think it must be the real stuff, and it seems like it's it's very clandestine, going to get it at the post office and through a friend of a friend, because you can never openly say this is the real deal. And how are you going to investigate who is the real deal? Who's going to do the testing so you can buy the right product? Because I've just tried 2 products. I'll possibly try a third if somebody, sort of approaches me and says, look, Tanya, I'm on this product. I can tell you it's no hallucinogenic. I'll give you a sample. Then I'll do it one more time, a third time. But I'm not convinced. And I think if someone is in my situation, they're going to go through what I'm going through. They're going to test many, many samples, and they're going to waste a lot of money. And they still might be in my shoes where they haven't found the real deal.
So the one topic that can certainly stir up emotions amongst the public, scientists and medical professionals alike is that of cannabis. Is it recommended by doctors? And if so, for which conditions? Is it safe? Should it be legal? Decriminalized? Has it been proven to be effective? Is it addictive? So how can we keep it out of the hands of teenagers? Is it really that wonder drug that people claim it is? Is medical cannabis just a ploy to legalize cannabis in general? So why do some people find it useful? And how can they then discuss it with their doctors? Now, these are just a few questions around this subject we'll address today. We focus on medical cannabis. And we're going to be joined by Head of Neurology from Wits University, the Medicine Control Officer Names and Scheduling, and also Acting Deputy Director Law Enforcement, both of them from the South African Health Product Regulatory Authorities, or just SAPRA for short. And from 2 families, we have a mother and a daughter on the one side, and then a father, who will all share their experiences of using cannabis oil. Now, be part of this show, as always, by asking the panel some questions or simply just sharing your views with us. The number to call is Johannesburg 714-5861 or 5877. You can also tweet us at SABC Health Talk or simply interact with us on our Facebook page, SABC Health Talk. So sit back, relax, and learn from this bumper show coming to you just after a short break. I'm Dr. Seloma Daum, and this is Health Talk.
Rice doesn't get better than this. Speckle.
Goodness is everywhere. It's the little things you say.
Please and thank you.
It's happening here. So helpful. And here. Oops. And is it the perfect family breakfast? Wheat Bix.
I was very young. I was 7 when I was diagnosed with Petit Mal Seizures. That's what they called it in those days. But you don't see the seizure as much. Your eyes flicker a little bit. As a little girl in class, the teacher noticed, and that's when I started the tests. They say I'd grow out of that epilepsy. So in those days, I had obviously different medication to manage it.
Tanya managed to control her epilepsy with medication while she was younger. Later on in life, she was diagnosed with cancer. That's where she learned of cannabis oil.
As a child, for epilepsy, my medication worked, but when I discovered now I have cancer, the medication they're giving me for pain is not working. It's just dulling it a little bit. So, of course, I sought alternative, which is the cannabis oil.
She got introduced to cannabis oil through the grapevine and made contact with the supplier and asked to get a bottle to assist with her pain that was caused by her cancer.
We made contact via email. I sought their email address and details, and I introduced who I was. It's not like it's available at the shops on the corner where I can just go and order it. So I pleaded with him. I said, please, can you help me? I'm really sick. I don't know when my surgery or my treatments will start, But in the interim, I cry with pain daily. So I said, please, could I order a sample or something from you and pay for it? And I said, but I don't want to get high.
Unfortunately for her, the product that she ordered had side effects of smoking marijuana.
And the product didn't work. So it didn't even dull the pain. I was too high. Definitely I was hallucinating in my bedroom, and I was quite scared because I only took one drop.
Tanya is getting medical attention for a snake bite through her homeopath. While discussing with the homeopath hinted that cannabis oil doesn't work.
I just said to him in passing, I ordered this stuff, it came through the mail, I tried it, but he said, Tanya, there's just not enough research. And I agreed with him, because if there was, we wouldn't have to order it that way. We would just go to the pharmacy and we would get the product that without THC.
Doctors are not allowed to prescribe cannabis oil to their patients, as it is not a registered medication yet. And according to Tanya, it needs to be registered.
I'm for registering it because then I know I'm going to get the real deal. It's been tested. I can't keep buying nonsense. So for me, yes, registered, because then that way I know that you're selling me the real stuff.
Tanya is due for a surgical operation for her cancer, which is a long wait, and she had hoped that cannabis oil will help reduce the pain in the meantime. Seeing that it doesn't work for her, she doesn't know what she will do to suppress the pain.
If I need chemo, they'll give me chemo. Otherwise, they're going to do a 7-hour surgery. It's a very difficult surgery. But in the interim, what do I do until I get that? Because I'm at Joburg Gen Hospital. I've got the best team, wonderful surgeons and doctors. But you'll be in a queue for months. In the interim, I need to find pain medication.
All right, so let's get straight onto our subject for today, cannabis oil. And to help us get through the subject is, first up, Professor Girish Modi, who is the head of neurology from Wits University. Welcome to Health Talk once again, Prof.
Thank you.
Right, and then we have Momina Omaji, who is the Medicines Control Officer, Names and Scheduling from SAPRA. It's that long name that I'm going to say again. Welcome to Health Talk, Momina.
Thank you so much for having us, Doctor.
All right, and also from SAPRA, Mlungisi Wondo, who is Acting Deputy Director, Law Enforcement. Welcome to Health Talk, Mlungisi.
Thank you, Dr. Mta.
All right.
Nice being here.
So I'll tell you what, I think let's start from the beginning. There's all sorts of terms that are in existence. People talk about dacha, cannabis, there's all of these, hemp, THC, CBD. Just please help us with these terms. What are we talking about here?
So often the colloquial terms or the informal terms, marijuana or hemp or dacha that have been used, is often used to describe the end product and often used to describe different strains of the cannabis plant itself.
Yeah.
So the cannabis plant is made up of the stems, the leaves, the plants, the seeds, which can be bred or cultivated to contain varying concentrations of THC, which is the tetrahydrocannabinol, or the cannabidiol, or what we know as CBD. How we try to define it at the authority is by the concentration level of the THC. So you get the high-containing THC products or high-containing THC cannabis, which is bred for recreational purposes and what the public out there knows as dacha, weed, ganja. You can keep on going on as to all the colloquial terms that they are.
But the important thing is that the active ingredients that we're going to be describing now is THC and CBD.
And CBD.
All right, Mlungisi, before we get to the technical aspect of these things, just tell us a little bit about your organization, SAPRA, and what both of you do, actually.
A good question, Sildo, because then you want us to tell the public about SAPRA.
Correct.
SAPRA is the Medicines Regulatory Authority of South Africa.
Right.
So all medicines in South Africa must go through SAPRA to be evaluated that they are safe and efficacious and of good quality for our public.
So when you say all medicines, what actually do you mean?
Well, I mean all medicines that are available in South Africa for patients where they'll be prescribed by doctors or dispensed by pharmacies, those medicines will have went through our channels, except for the other sections of the Act that we'll talk about later on. However, medicines that are available in South Africa, they must be registered, all of them.
All right.
So including all the medicines you have at home or the ones you know, even the one we're talking about today.
What about the so-called health products?
Health products, it's part of our grouping we call complementary medicines.
Yes.
So those are regulated as well. We are going into the fields where people are selling the medicines that are not evaluated by us. We have systems working with other stakeholders such as police, where we go in hard and remove all those products from the markets. However, it's still been an easy process. As you know, we're moving from MCC to SAPRA. We'll get more human resources now at SAPRA to manage all of those problems, including cannabis.
Okay, we're going to come back to the question of cannabis and how it's regulated. But Prof, let's just come back to, I think she started off by talking about these active ingredients, THC and CBD. I guess for most time today we're going to be focusing a lot more on CBD and of course touch on THC a bit. Now, can you just take us through the physiology then of this CBD?
I think it's an interesting way to look at it. And I thought that's probably the way to look at it. Get to the science of this before you get to the mischief.
Yeah.
So the problem is this drug.
I hope there's no mischief.
The problem is this drug starts off with a history of mischief. Think about it.
Right.
So it's been around forever. So if you look at records on cannabis, they go back as like 3000 BC. So people have been using it for various reasons.
Right.
You know, spiritual things, ritual things. And then slowly it came into the realm of medicine. And medical cannabis started. And so all the exciting things that, you know, that make it bad came out where it could give you euphoria. So soldiers used it, prisoners were given it, people in pain were given it because of its immediate effects. Okay, but the research, the science behind it, the neuroscience, perhaps that's why I'm here. I'm wondering sometimes why I'm here for this talk. It's usually epilepsy or something. But the neuroscience behind this is very recent. It's like 10, 20 years, right? So if you look at it, in the early 90s was the first time that this whole endocannabinoid system started becoming real, right? And so that's the important thing. We have this in our brains, in our bodies. Mammals have it, animals have it, lots of species have it.
And what is that system you're talking about?
It's called the endocannabinoid system,
right?
And in fact, what has been identified in the mid-90s is that there are receptors in your brain, your immune system, your gut, and even in your skin, the CB1 and CB2 receptors. Now, they've been already isolated and identified. So when there are endogenous receptors, not that you've created them by using it, then there's an endogenous neurotransmitter that's linked to it. And they've now identified that as well. Ananda Mite is the name used for it. So in effect, this is something completely interesting to neuroscience because it's something in your brain, it's something that regulates the neurohumoral immune system, right? And it's got relevance. And the identification of this has resulted in lots of research that shows that it has a major role to play in pain, this pathway, the endocannabinoid system. Major role to play in pain, major role to play in sleep, major role to play even in fertility. Okay? And then obviously mood, memory, and anxiety. So that's where it's naturally involved in. So it's very interesting. I was reading this up, and there are certain drugs like the omegas, your Kia, which has become very popular now as a health product. You're speaking about chia seeds. All of these seem to work through the endocannabinoid system. Even the omegas that you're taking work through that system. And it's interesting that in the cells, in your intracells, in your brain cells itself, and your immune cells itself, not only on the surface are there receptors, but inside there are these receptors. And they produce an antioxidant effect. And in fact, when you think about neuroscience, everything is focused on antioxidation because that's how you create cell survival, and you reduce disease and degeneration.
So if I could just summarize, I mean, so this is just a system that we have.
We have it.
That
This is
has
important.
receptors,
Yeah.
but our bodies don't produce CBD.
No. So we produce ligands. Ligand is something similar to the product. Right. So CBD, THC, all these things are it's like your diet. Your diet has vitamins in it.
Okay.
Right.
So
your diet has dopamine. Dopamine is a brain transmitter.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing.
Okay. I'll tell you what.
It's actually the same
Let's just,
thing.
before we run out of time in this segment, take Anonymous from Cape Town. Anonymous, welcome.
Hi there. How are you guys doing?
We're good. How are you, Anonymous?
I'm very well, thank you. So I just wanted to state, I saw the lady show that she's actually using cannabis oil, CBD oil, and it's not working for her.
Yeah.
I've been using some oil due to my sport injuries that I had.
Yeah.
And my question to the doc in studio is that if we remove THC from the oil, isn't it then supposed to work for the lady that was on earlier on?
All right. Okay. Excellent question. We'll come back to that. If we have a bit of time, do you want to perhaps just keep it? And when we come back, you'll address that question, because for now, we're going to have to go for a quick break. And before that, there's one tweet that I need to go through. And if we could just bring it up on the screen quickly. And it says, every single time a person floods their bodies with dozens of grams of cannabis oil over a few months, their diseases just disappear. All diseases stem from homeostatic imbalance and cannabis fuels our endocannabinoid system with 700 plus medicines that boost homeostatic balances. I guess it's related to what I would say. All right. Okay, time for a quick break. When we come back, we continue our discussion on medical cannabis. Please stay with us.
The ANC-NEC revealed in a statement that they supported the user pay system. So are you saying that motorists, Gauteng motorists, have to pay for e-tolls?
It is a principle that is raised. We are saying that we support the principle of user pay.
We imported a lot of technology, as an example, in order to invest here, and those people are not going to say, listen, you don't have to pay me back. They are demanding their money back.
SANRAL has another 19,000 kilometers of non-tolled roads which it finances the maintenance, the upgrading, the building of. Why they want to continuously force a square peg into a round hole on this issue just blows us away.
It makes no sense to pay a toll on a toll on a toll. The roads are still looking terrible. The whole thing is just ridiculous.
It needs to be scrapped.
We didn't ask for it. So why do we have to pay for it?
Epilepsy Tetwa joins us now live. MNS attorneys were mandated to conduct these reports and investigations. What sort of processes did they follow?
We heard Tiamo explaining that they worked with actuarial scientists in order to investigate these transactions.
Slap suits, tell us more about this.
The concept of slap suits, which is litigation often used by big companies to silence critics.
We as civil society won't stand for this kind of intimidation and harassment. If you come to South Africa, you need to obey the obligations that you have in terms of the laws of this country, including environmental laws.
Welcome back. Our subject today, medical cannabis, and our guest, Professor Girish Modi, who is head of neurology from Wits University. Now we're joined by two other very important guests today. The lady in the middle is Tamika Martin, who's living with epilepsy and is going to share her story with us. Welcome to Health Talk, Tamika.
Thank you.
All right. And she's with her mother, Marilyn Martin, who's also going to share, her story as a family of, obviously going through the epilepsy issue and using medical cannabis. Welcome to Health Talk.
Thanks.
All right. I'm going to come back to you shortly, all right? But let's start off by, we described all of this, physiology and the chemistry and so on. Just to come back to what people use this for, just to recap as well. What do people use medical cannabis for?
So there are the off-label users, but then there are the users which are sort of scientifically acceptable.
Right.
Okay. So if we take epilepsy, the two conditions the FDA have approved it for, Lennox-Gastaut syndrome and Dravet syndrome. These are very severe, bad, intractable epilepsies.
Right.
So it's been shown to be better than the current treatments available for those conditions. Right? And then it's been used specifically to treat nausea that's associated with cancer drugs.
Yeah.
Not for the cancer itself, but the cancer drugs that we use create severe nausea, vomiting.
Yeah.
And so it's been beneficial for that. The third role has been reasonable in pain.
Right.
Right? And so those are the registered uses for it.
Okay.
Then off-label, there's a lot of work being done currently. So multiple sclerosis patients have have asked me every single day, can they use cannabis? And there's some studies going on to see that in the long term, it may assist with their stiffness or spasticity.
Yeah.
It seems to maybe in the long term assist with fatigue,
Yeah.
the pain that they suffer, and those are the main symptoms there.
Okay.
Then there's a serious role for this perhaps in sleep, right? But again, trials are still on the go, and we can't say that yes, use it, don't use it, etc. Then there's a hell of a lot of other stuff. So
Of course,
the
other
list
stuff
is
that the public seems to know a lot more than the scientists to the
So they
medical
come
professionals.
as doctors, we like bombarded on a daily basis.
Yes.
Can I use it for this? Can I use it for that? Can I use it? Can I use it? Can I use it? Right? My one point I say to all my patients is that to date, there is no rocket scientist who use cannabis recreationally. So we do know that cannabis in the long term affects cognition and memory. So be wary. It may be, if you look at the endocannabinoid system that we spoke about earlier, once that is properly dealt with, once we understand the CBD versus THC. Now remember, that plant has over 460 different cannabinoids.
All right. Okay.
We're
Maybe
dealing with two.
let's just give our two guests a chance, and I'm interested to know a little more about Tamika. Tamika, you've been living with epilepsy for a while now.
Yeah.
Would you mind just sharing your story with us in terms of how long you've been living with epilepsy and so on?
I've had epilepsy for going on 8 years now.
Right.
When my seizures first started, it was around the time when my uncle had died.
Do you mind telling us how old you were then?
I was 11.
11 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when we had gone to the neurologist, he had said to me that I'd always had epilepsy, but I would have it in like dizzy spells. So
before that point?
yeah, before that point.
Right.
And it was the trauma of my uncle passing away that's what brought on my serious seizures. And then for the 8 years, well, that period of time, I'd been taking the medication.
Prescribed by your neurologist?
Yes, yeah.
Right.
And it was helping, but the side effects were very bad. Like sometimes when I'd have seizures, it would take me a week to 2 weeks to recover from them. My memory was bad, things like that. I was doing badly in school. I'd become aggressive with my family, and I think that took a toll on the entire
as a
family.
result of the medication side
Yeah,
effects.
itself.
Okay.
And then
just hold it there, because we want to take a call. Stefan from Johannesburg. Stefan, welcome.
Thank you very much on the show.
Yeah.
I would just like to say that I think cannabis should be decriminalized for both medical as well as recreational use.
All right.
Because the problem that exists in South Africa is that the CBD oil is becoming more and more legal now, but it is at an expensive cost, which restrains many people from using it.
Yeah.
Whereas recreationally, you can still receive some of the good effects of cannabis.
Okay.
To help you with pain, anxiety, I would even say depression and anger as well.
All right.
Because I'm a person I've just recently stopped using cannabis, but it's not something I've definitely stopped using for the rest of my life. And it has helped me over the last 7 years, I would say, in terms of depression, to help curb depression, as as well as to help curb anger
All right. Okay.
and anxiety.
Okay, thank you so much for your contribution, and I'm sure we'll get back to that issue. I mean, obviously your view is that regulation will bring the price down, but let's come back to Marilyn. Marilyn, you've heard what Tamika said. Perhaps from your perspective as a parent now, going through, looking after her with epilepsy. Yeah?
Look, it was very traumatizing, dealing with the seizures. It was something people weren't used to seeing, something people weren't used to dealing with. So people used to shy away from her particularly and, sort of like treat her like she had some, bad disease or whatever the case may be. It took its toll on us as a family. We, in turn, had to learn to deal with it. The mood swings, all the episodes that used to follow after that. And
and then, of course, at some point you heard about cannabis oil and you started using cannabis
yes,
oil.
Yes.
Just out of interest, how did you come to know about cannabis oil?
She had an episode at school one day, and it was one of many because it subsided and then it just came up, it's flared up again. And it was a really bad one. They called me at work. I had to go out and see to it, and I'd reached, my wit's end. And a client of mine actually called me and said, he's heard of this product and he's using it for gout. And would we look at trying it because, I think they could see the toll that it was taking on me. And at that point, I was willing to try anything. So,
so how long have you been using cannabis oil then?
Just over a year and a half.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Any experience?
I've been taking it alongside my Epilim medication, and it's really helped a lot.
Yeah.
I started doing well in school. My memory is doing a lot better. I don't suffer from the after effects of seizures. Like the recovery time is half an hour at most.
And you've kept your Epilim dosage exactly the same?
Yeah.
All right. So all you've added was the cannabis oil?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right. I'm going to get a comment from you. Firstly, in terms of the side effects of Epilim and what's been described.
No, but what you talk about is very true. A lot of patients don't like the medicines we have because of the side effects. So not all respond in the same way.
Yeah.
But take Epilim, not that we saying it's a bad drug, it's a hell of a good drug.
Yeah.
It's produced tremendous results when it comes to epilepsy.
Yeah.
But you do get the bad side effects. You get the weight gain, you get the slowness of brain function, you don't feel happy. So when you've got that kind of symptom and your doctor doesn't change the drug, then you are very likely to try other things.
Yeah.
Now, the one interesting thing you come up with is that you didn't stop your principal epilepsy medication.
Yeah.
You've added that, which is probably a healthy thing to do.
Correct. Because at least then they can attribute the change to adding cannabis oil.
I think they balance
where do you get it from then, if I may ask?
I get it from a supplier. I don't really want to discuss where, but it's freely available.
You don't have to disclose, but why don't you want to disclose?
Because I don't know what their status is in terms of licensing and stuff.
Right.
All I know is that it works, and I'll continue using it.
Right. But did you just try one product?
No.
Or did you have to go through a few?
The first one that we got, we could see the benefit, but it was high in THC. So she was like a zombie. She was always tired and always sleeping, and so we stopped that one, and we tried another one that was more like an oil.
Yeah.
It had like a greenish look to it, and we weren't happy with that one either. And the one that we're using now is a hemp concentrate. It's black. It's almost like, it looks like tar.
Yeah.
And that one is low in THC.
Okay. So this change and, deciding that now this one is not working, this is entirely your own experience. It was based on your experience.
Based on our own
anybody
experience.
Else to say,
Based on our own experience.
All right. And you're happy on the last one?
Yeah.
All right. And your plans going forward?
Well, next year I'll be going to varsity.
Yeah.
And I want to study journalism.
Right. And you're happy using these two, Epilim and your cannabis oil?
Yeah.
Well, I can only wish you well going forward. Thank you so much for
Thank
sharing
you.
your... before we go on a break, let's take Gwendolyn from the East End, Welcome to Health Talk.
Hi, how are you?
We're good. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Your comment or question, please?
My question is, my she's been diagnosed with systematic sclerosis, which is lupus.
Yeah.
We recently tried the cannabis oil. They said we must put like a drop in her throat. So I just want to know, does it assist in terms of her pain? Is it good for her as a lupus patient or systematic sclerosis patient?
Yeah. But what's been your experience? Has it helped? What's been your experience since using it?
Since using it, we've just used it since Friday.
Yeah.
Not just my experience.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Pain. She's got a lot of pain. So I don't know if it's good. And as they said on the conversation, it is, you get memory loss. So I'm scared that might affect her in the long run.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much for the question. We'll see if we'll be able to answer that question for you. We may not have experts on cannabis, or maybe we do, but we'll try our best. And before we go on a break, we have another tweet that we'd like to just go over quickly. Help for Tegan says, last year Tegan lay in a coma due to epilepsy. Today she went surfing. Cannabis oil made this possible, and despite what guidelines say, we have evidence before our eyes. They just need to open their eyes. Maybe they're talking about you, Kirish. All right, time for another quick break. When we come back, we'll continue our story on cannabis oil. Please stay with us.
What recourse do these individuals or entities have against the public protector?
Desiree, the question is how was this information acquired? Who leaked it? But I guess that those people should have legal recourse.
We are quite worried about the contempt violation of the public protector provision. If information is just leaked in this form, that further erodes the integrity of that particular office.
How easy or difficult is it to get rid of a public protector?
It's very difficult to get rid of the public protector. The very nature of her job is such that she needs to have tenure security in order to discharge her functions without fear or favor.
Do you feel that this conversation is taking the country forward?
It is, because the public protector is not doing anything wrong.
During Women's Month, what I think we should remember as women, both in our personal and in our work lives, is that you never know what the future is going to bring, and always to keep a sense of optimism, because there really are endless possibilities for what you can achieve and the good things that are going to happen to you.
SABC News celebrates Women's Month.
Welcome back to this fascinating topic of medical cannabis. And helping us go through this is Prof. Girish Modi, Head of Neurology from VET. And we still have Mulungisi Wondo, Acting Deputy Director, Law Enforcement from SAPRA. And now we're joined by another special guest, John Stewart, who's a parent of somebody that's using cannabis oil. Welcome to Health Talk, John.
Thank you, Doc.
All right. Before we start our discussion, we have Linda from Nelspruit. Linda, welcome.
Yes, how are you?
We're good. How are you, Linda?
What I wanted to say is that I've been living with epilepsy for over 20 years.
Right.
And I've been to numerous doctors, specialists, whatever. And my mother phoned from Australia. She's gone there for a visit. And she says they use it freely. And it's really helping. So,
All right.
you know, it looks like, you know, it's quite a helpful, like...
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. And that's an interesting one, that it's, you know, when different countries view it differently. Even, in fact, even within the United States, some states have legalized it. Some states you still, you know, cannot use it. Thank you so much for that. We'll put it back to the panel. So perhaps let's start with you. There were questions earlier around, you know, somebody feeling very strongly about the fact that, you know, this should be legalized because one of the problems that they're encountering is that, you know, these products are too expensive, and that once, you know, they're all regulated, the price factor will come down. Your comment on that?
Thanks, Phil. Your question is important to explain exactly the pricing.
Yeah.
Remember, the products we have now on the market are illegal, except the ones that may have gone through our Section 21.
Yeah.
Those that are illegal, people will raise the prices because they got them through typical channels, probably, or they even imported them illegally. So hence the price will be high, and they know the demand is high as well. So people will pay because it's not easy to find the product. Now, bringing it back to you, the question, regulation helps for the availability of that medicines. So the more people apply to register their products, the more the products will be available in South Africa at a good, reasonable prices, because then competition becomes live, and then people will be selling the products based on their production processes, not on illegal processes or high cost of importing.
We're going to come back to the issue of, you know, the production side, because I think that's in fact one of the main issues we needed to discuss in this segment. But before that, let's speak to John. John, once again, welcome, and thank you so much for agreeing to be part of the show. You have a daughter that has a neurological condition, and you've gone through this for many, many years. Just please share your story with us.
So our daughter Loden was born with a compromised situation. The umbilical cord is around the neck, but all other signs were normal.
Yeah.
And but within the first 3 months, she began experiencing high temperatures, and eventually it was diagnosed that she had epilepsy.
Right.
We didn't know what type of epilepsy. We were pretty young, and we just accepted the diagnosis that was given. She was put on a number of medications. Some of them worked, but we were told that there would be major side effects. Most of them that would cause disfiguration facially and that sort of thing. And as time went on, the medications kept changing. So by the time she was 6 years old, she'd been through a multiple of medications. We'd been through a number of different neurologists as well. And we were still struggling to find control. The seizures would cause her to be injured. So she'd have what they call a drop seizure. There would be no notice of when a seizure would come, so she constantly ended up with injuries on her face, lips, around the mouth area, requiring stitches. It was a pretty difficult situation to grow up with. And finally, at the age of 12, they diagnosed her with a condition known as Lennox-Gastaut, which Prof has mentioned already. And we were told it's one of the most difficult conditions to treat. And at one time, she was even on as many as 4 different medications. It left us with a number of unanswered questions, and eventually I tried dietary treatments. The keto diet worked very well.
Yeah.
I had no idea about cannabis at that time, and eventually, when she was about 20, we heard about the story on CNN with Dr. Sanjay Gupta, who did the expose with, and it came to light with a little girl by the name of Charlotte Figi, who had Dravet syndrome. But it reminded us so much of Loden, we couldn't tell the two conditions apart. And the search started then. So I've been on a search for this since about 2012, 2013, trying to find the right product.
Yeah.
And because of legislation and of course medical cannabis being an illegal product, it wasn't easy. I would be the gatekeeper, so anytime somebody I came across somebody who said, this is going to work, I would be the one that would try it. And it was never the right product. And about 7 months ago, we came across a product through a friend that was part of a support group. And it was like a miracle. Up until then, Lauren was on 3 medications, 2 of which were causing psychotic episodes, enormous bouts of aggression. She couldn't stand, her balance was completely gone, and as a result of that, she was experiencing more injuries as well.
Okay. So tell us then about the cannabis. In what form was it? Was it the oil?
Yes, it was the oil.
And so you started using it and you saw changes?
Correct, yeah.
What happened to the medication that she was on?
So she's still on the Epilim medication, but the other 2 medications we've since weaned her off.
Yeah.
And she's shown huge improvement. She's now got her balance back again.
Yeah.
Her speech is starting to return, which is something that she was unable to practice for at least almost the last year and a half, 2 years. Her speech just diminished quite significantly.
Just out of interest, how do you then work out the dosaging in the oil?
So I've done a lot of research, and the sources have been mainly overseas. The man who's inspired me is a Professor Raphael Meshulam of the Hebrew University of Israel. Yeah. And his work into epilepsy and how the CBD works has been quite enlightening. Yeah. And through that, I learned that you had to start at a very low dose. A low dose meant, if I could put it into a perspective, if you used a matchstick head or a pin head, that's what translates into quantity.
In terms of the size of the drop?
Correct. And it's really a trial and error because the endocannabinoid system is unique to each individual. So, you've got to adjust the dosages to find the right balance.
Very interesting. Let's take Tata on the line from Krugersdorp. Tata, welcome.
Hi, good.
Okay, we seem to have lost Tata. We'll come back to that. Mlungisi, there's the issue around that we promised to come back to, the production, the people that supply. I mean, we've heard that, there's a whole lot of people that produce the stuff. Please tell us around the regulations around it. We know that there's 2 suppliers that are now licensed to produce the stuff in South Africa. Take us through that.
Thanks a lot. I'm happy you're asking that question. Because then people will be asking, if you're saying the products that are in the market are illegal, then where do we get it? Our systems allow for the products to be registered first, and then those products that are registered, they will be manufactured in facilities that are licensed by SAPRA. I think that's important for people to know. That is based on monitoring quality of the products from start until patients report complaints or ADRs we've heard here. Of whatever went wrong with that product. Those are the controls we have.
So I suppose you can only license the ones that apply to you.
That's correct.
Yes. And just give us a sense of how many people come to you to apply.
Yes. I will separate now for cannabis because the process of licensing facilities has been going for years.
Right.
Like you'll know your manufacturers in South Africa of other medicines. In cannabis, we're sitting at applicants around 100 as we speak now, locally. People who want to produce the products from cultivation. Most of them looking at cultivation to export the flower because they think it will be expensive to do the processing of the flower to create the product.
To extract cannabis.
To extract, yes, to make the finished product. Yes, to make the finished product, whether THC or CBD or both of them. Right. So currently they are sitting at producing, applying for cultivation to produce the flower to export to markets where it's legal. Production, there's application processes that are on our website for people to follow the application process to cultivate or manufacture your product. It's easy processes. Then you pay your application form, then we inspect you, then if you comply with our standards, we give you a license.
Okay. All right. We seem to have Tato back on the line. Tato, you back with us?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, welcome.
Yes, I'm here calling, she's speaking to Tato. I'm 28 years old.
Right.
My condition is epilepsy is, I don't know what's going on. It started on my 16th birthday.
on that very same day, on my 16th birthday, I had my first attack. And obviously I didn't know what was going on, so we just like ignored it. But it kept going on and on and on, and I was in high school. And it kept going worse and worse. And one day I broke my left arm. So I had to like go to like through what and put some things, go to doctors and stuff, and even went to hospital.
Yeah.
So my question is, I don't know what is going on with it because it just keeps getting worse. But right now, I started getting medication from 2010. That's when I started getting medication.
So your seizures are getting worse, more frequent. Is that what you're saying?
Most frequent, yes, and mostly at night. I don't know why.
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you so much for your question, Tata. We'll give it over to the Prof very quickly before we go back to
answer Tato's question.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I know it's difficult to be specific.
Yeah,
but
she sounds like she has a generalized epilepsy, nocturnal epilepsy. She needs to be on some medication for this.
Right.
She really needs to see her doctor.
Okay, go back to her
doctor.
Go back to her doctor,
yeah.
All right, all right. Let's come back to you before we go on a break. I mean, going forward, I mean, you've given us such an enlightening story around your daughter. How is she doing now, and what's the plan, going forward?
So just for context in terms of the changes, Lauren in her early years would experience anywhere between 60 to 90 seizures a day. And that was on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. It went from what they call a Petit Mal and then eventually went to Grand Mal. Mm. And so it's robbed of a cognitive ability. Since the improvements have come in, Lauren now gets between 10 to 15 seizures a month. Mm. The reduction of Grand Mal seizures has come down by as much as 50%.
Yeah.
The Petit Mal seizures have come down by as much as 80 to 90%.
And you attribute all of this to cannabis oil?
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
John Stewart, thank you so much for your time, and I can only wish you well going forward.
Thank you so much.
All right, time for another quick break. When we come back, we'll wrap up our discussion on medical cannabis. Please stay with us.
We're very keen to hear why must Zuma's character be assassinated.
Mzwandile, former President Jacob Zuma, doesn't believe that there was state capture.
He did qualify to say his understanding may be limited.
Arabile, there's lots of red on the board behind you. Is it a true reflection of what's happening on the markets today?
Yeah, certainly is, Nzing. About 0.1% lower thus far for the markets here locally.
Your money on Market Sense. South Africa needs jobs.
We stay on the visuals, they're busy shooting.
We drove around this.
Come on, into work.
What recourse do these individuals or entities have against the public protector?
Desiree, the question is how was this information acquired? Who leaked it? But I guess that those people should have legal recourse.
We are quite worried about the contempt violation of the public protector provision. If information is just leaked in this form, that further erodes the integrity of that particular office.
How easy or difficult is it to get rid of a public protector?
It's very difficult to get rid of the public protector. The very nature of her job is such that she needs to have tenure security in order to discharge her functions without fear or favor.
Do you feel that this conversation is taking the country forward?
It is, because the public protector is not doing anything wrong.
Welcome back, and thank you so much for staying with us. We're discussing medical cannabis with our guest, Prof. Girish Moody, Mumina Omeji, and of course Mlungisi from the SAPRA. That long name, SAPRA. Okay. All right. So let's time to wrap up our discussion. Now, I think coming back to the users, I mean, it's quite clear that people use cannabis oil, or the commonest form is cannabis oil, but medical cannabis is used, and there are medical indications, right? And the question was, why isn't it that, so many people knowing about this stuff, they consult doctors. Epilepsy has been a very common example given. Why aren't doctors talking about cannabis oil?
Okay, so I think the important thing is we are in the embryonic stage of this whole business. Remember, all the other drugs so pharmacology is based on your own neurochemistry, your brain chemistry. So we produce drugs, sometimes by accidents, through nature or whatever, like aspirin, but we need to know that it's linked to your brain and your body functions, right? So ultimately, that's where it's all about. And now we know there's an endogenous cannabinoid system in your body.
Right.
So that's going to kick off. And remember, this is 1998. It's not long ago. So now that's going to kick off this whole new research. But it's got to go through these rigorous processes. You see, anecdotal stories are fantastic. I think Mr. Stewart's story is excellent. He's done it very professionally. Even though he's a layperson, he's gone through the processes. And that's the way you do it. It's not supposed to be willy-nilly, not glib. My neighbor has epilepsy, he's got better, I must use it. You see, that's the problem with this drug.
That's exactly the problem. Now, let's just come back to the regulation side. Now, we do know that there are instances where this is prescribed in hospital, and there's a process that is followed. Just take us through that, because it's not too many people know about that.
I would say now, if we're going to feature the legal products in the market, those will have went through the Section 21.
Right.
That's a section that is used for access to medicine that are not registered in South Africa. So those doctors will be prescribing based on some knowledge that that drug is working in some country and is registered in that country. Then we allow that country to come in based on those doctors and the patients, and then it's controlled in that environment. That's the legal process that's happening in the country. However, the easier one for everyone is for people to apply to register products locally. Yes, that will make it more available for more people.
Okay. Mamina, you want to add to that?
If I could just add, so following on from what Lungisi has said is, so you do have products that are globally registered. So the FDA has recently registered a product called Epidural X that's specific for Lennox gasto, epilepsy, and Dravet syndrome. And that's a CBD-only containing medicine. So it's registered in the US. And then you have Sativex, which is also an oral spray that's a combination of CBD and THC, which is used for spasticity in multiple sclerosis patients. So there are products out there that have been proven to have the quality, efficacy standards for those specific clinical indications. And we in South Africa can access that, as Lungisi said, via the Section 21 portal, via an authorized prescriber for a specific named patient.
But I mean, it's not an easy way of accessing those.
It's a very difficult process.
It's getting easier. We've expedited our Section 21 process to improve efficiency timelines.
All right. Let's stick on the other side, the trial and error side. And I think it talks more to your responsibility around dosaging. We don't know the side effects of these products because they're not out there, So how can we make it, I know it's a difficult one to ask, but how can we protect the public?
We can protect the public by asking the public to not buy from illegal manufacturers or illicit or clandestine operations, and try to get it via the Section 21 portal. What the Minister of Health has done in May 2019 has issued out a exception notice for certain products or certain CBD containing preparations from exclusion from the schedules, which are excluding it from the schedules, which is currently a Schedule 4 substance. And we asked them, so stay away from the illegal and clandestine and try to buy them from reputable stores where these acceptable products meeting the criteria that have been listed out in the exclusion notice are followed.
And I do hope that people know where these outlets are, that are so-called reputable. Well, I'm afraid we've run out of time. That's all the time we have today. And I want to thank you so much for this very insightful show. And unfortunately, I wish we had more time, but, this is it. And for you guys at home, we want to thank you so much for all the calls and participation in this show. Before we go, if we do have time to go through the last tweet, we actually can, but otherwise, it doesn't look like I am. Who's that? Brady says, gave my grandfather cannabis oil to help with his Parkinson's symptom, but accidentally got him stoned. I think that's an excellent way to end this show. I'm Dr. Silo Mateo. Until next time, please do take care.
Thanks.